everyone. Hi, for those of you I don't know, my name is Kerry Wiggum. I'm one of the co-directors of the Institute for Genocide and Mass Atrocity Prevention. Thanks so much for coming. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are on the ancestral territory of the Oneida and Onondaga nations, who are themselves victims and survivors of genocide and the ongoing effects of settler colonial genocide. I'm very happy to introduce you today to a colleague and a friend and someone who's been a real inspiration in my life, the work that he does, Vahidin Omanovic. Vahidin is the co-founder and co-director of the Center for Peacebuilding, based in Sanski Most, Bosnia and Herzegovina. SIM seeks to build trust and foster reconciliation among the people of Bosnia, including Bosniaks, Croats, Serbs, and others. Prior to that, Vahidin received a master's degree at the School for International Training in Brattleboro, Vermont in International Relations with a concentration in conflict transformation. Additionally, he taught classes on forgiveness and conflict transformation for SIT's Conflict Transformation Across Cultures program. He's attended peace workshops and trainings throughout the world, including in Switzerland, the Philippines, and Nepal, where he helped to found a peace-building organization. And in addition to all of that and doing this amazing work, he remains one of the kindest and funniest people that I know, and I'm so happy that you get to hear him speak today about his journey to becoming a peace builder. So please join me in welcoming Vahidin.
Thank you, Kerry. I am honored and super happy to have this opportunity to come to your university and to share with you my experience, my story, and also my ways to try to help rebuild a society in a country that was heavily, I can say, destroyed. And on the note that I'm funny, I wanted to start speaking with a very thick accent, so just to kind of give you a little of the Bosnian exotic, but I decided not to. So as you heard, my name is Vahidin Omanovic, and I also realized even when people know my name, for me it's very important to tell my name out loud, and I will explain later why. And I was born in 1975. I was born in Yugoslavia, I grew up in Yugoslavia, so as you can imagine, Tito was everything to me. I was 5 when he died, and I thought that was the end of the world, but thank God it wasn't. And we continued to live in Yugoslavia until '92, and I can say that I felt really good as a Yugoslavian citizen, and I was very proud to be a Tito's pioneer. This was a very great honor for every child in Yugoslavia to have a special hat when we start first grade of elementary school. And in '89, when Milosevic came in power and started talking about, how Yugoslavia needs to be reshaped, and when Slovenia and Croatia decided to exit Yugoslavia, and then we were aware that this is it, this is the end of Yugoslavia, and at the same time we didn't believe that anything bad can happen in Bosnia, because we lived in peace and we lived in a way that we not only respected each other, but we really loved our neighbors, and we felt loved by our neighbors, and we didn't care. Like, I never knew who was Serb, Croat, Bosnian. For us, we were all Yugoslavs. We knew that we had Orthodox Christians, that we were Catholics, that we were Muslims, but this was not in any way an obstacle for us to be together, to be best friends, to be good neighbors, to even fall in love, marry, have children, etc. And then when war in Slovenia started, we in Bosnia thought, oh my God, these Slovenians, they always try to be, Europeans, and like, why can't they just behave? Thank God that war lasted only for 9 days, and then when war in Croatia started again, this was our reactions, like, Croats are really trying hard not to be part of the Balkans and try to be, again, Europeans. but we didn't believe that war might happen in Bosnia. And I remember very well that everybody was sharing the same opinion that war can happen in Switzerland before it happens in Bosnia, because they were talking about drawing a line where Serbs would live in one part of Bosnia, Croats in one, Bosniaks in one, and we knew that there is no way, how can you draw a line in one street where we had a Serb, Bosniak, and a Croat house next to each other. Of course, we didn't know that they had ethnic cleansing and genocide in mind, and that they were ready actually to do everything to fulfill what was called at that time the how they call it, the 100 years dream of liberation and finally coming to the point where all the Serbs would live in the same country. My town is located in the northwest of Bosnia, and it was a very small town comparing to other towns in Bosnia. We were up to 60,000 people, and first victims or first places where war started in Bosnia was Eastern Bosnia. Again, we in Western Bosnia, we thought these people from the East, they were not civilized enough. And then finally one morning we turned on the radio station, and the mayor of my town was on the radio station announcing that, thank God, Savski Most, Srpski Savski Most or Serbian Savski Most is finally in our hands, liberated. So the Serbs have finally freedom, and all the non-Serbs stay at home, don't go to work, don't go to school, and wait for future instructions. And for us, this was really a shock, even though we witnessed what was going on in Slovenia, in Croatia. Vukovar already happened in Croatia, which was one of the biggest massacres that took place in Croatia. And then Eastern Bosnia, Sarajevo was already under the siege, but we didn't feel it. It felt so far away. And we decided within, I would say, 15 minutes that we would try to escape. And my family, we just sat in a few cars. We were 10 people. My father decided to stay at home because somebody had to stay to take care of cows that we had. And of course, he had to take care of the house because he built that house. So for him, it was, and also our family lived on the same place for the last at least 300 years, like that long we remember, probably longer. And we were happy that he let us leave. So like, if you want to stay and wait for the soldiers, be our guest, and we left. And normally, from Savski Most to get to Slovenia would be 4.5 hours. We traveled for 3 days, traveled through mountains, and in several places we met different soldiers, and it was not, of course, pleasant experience, as you can imagine. We didn't believe that we would survive them because many they were drugged and drunk. All the bridges between Bosnia and Croatia were destroyed, so we had to go to a certain place where refugees from Bosnia were crossing Croatian border with boats over Sava River. And thank God we managed, we survived, and then we traveled from that place to Zagreb. Again, we weren't aware that we were traveling in between the first front line between Croatian troops and the Serbian troops, and then we end up in Slovenia. After 1 month, we heard that my village was attacked, that was destroyed, that people were killed, but we didn't know for sure what was going on. Only a month later, when first refugees came, I rushed to see them and to ask about what happened, and people in the village, of course, about my father. And then that's where I heard that my father was killed, that the entire village was totally destroyed, that many people were killed. Later on, I will find out that more than 200 people were killed, children, women. Basically, when army came in first 2 days, whoever they found, they killed. They didn't ask if you belonged to any political party or who you were. For them, they were just Muslims, and the goal was to be erased from that part of Bosnia. It was not only destiny of my village, it was about, I think, 72% of Bosnian territory was occupied between April and the end of June, and this was, they shared the same destiny. Basically, the entire territory was ethnically cleansed, and that's territory that's mainly today Republika Srpska. So when we talk about divisions in Bosnia today, for me it's very important that we understand and remember that not federation, not Republika Srpska had demographics that they have today. This is result of ethnic cleansing and genocide. We planned, when we were escaping, we planned to stay for approximately 2 weeks until they take over, and then we will come back, and then these 2 weeks lasted longer than 4 years. And I want to share with you, and this was something, I would say, the best that happened to us. My father called us after 8 months, and we did all the funeral and all the rituals for him, and I was praying for him, special prayers every day, and he called on the New Year's Eve to let us know that he survived, that he is in Zagreb. He knew that we thought that he was dead, and he came to us, and I would say it was not easy, not for him, not for us. He wouldn't talk about his experience. At night he would scream, because we were all sleeping in the same room. We were refugees, and he would scream, and he couldn't really move. But he would never share what happened to him. And in the refugee camp, for me, the most difficult part was, on one hand, I already lost everything, and even my life, I didn't feel like that was life. I felt like I was dead, but I just had to eat and move. But the most difficult part was that even our names were taken away. So not only that I lost everything, but I just became a number of UNHCR. And that's why I connect that I always love to say my name out loud, so I make sure that this is really Vahidin. And it lasted for 4 years, and it wasn't a pleasant experience, and at the same time we were grateful that we survived. We had food, we had shelter, but as soon as Bosnian army occupied or liberated Savski Most, it depends from which side we look, we decided to go back. And becoming refugee, losing everything, in the age of 16, it was not really the healthiest or the best experience that I could have, and I just started to be more and more angry, and I really hated Serbs to the point that the only reason for me to stay alive was to revenge to somebody someday. And even now, when I talk about it, it's not comfortable 100%, but I try not to feel, not to blame myself, like even the experience and everything. This was, understanding. And when I returned to Bosnia, I promised myself that I would never sit in the same room with Serbs, that I was done with them. And the result, the reason why I felt this was that my best friends in my childhood were Serbs. I had teachers whom I loved so much, and they were Serbs, and I never knew actually that they were different than me. And then all of a sudden, overnight, at that age, I didn't understand. I wasn't able to analyze how it happened, why it happened, but everything changed for me overnight. And when I returned to Bosnia, I started to work in an elementary school, and because our house was destroyed, we couldn't go back to the house, to my village, but we stayed in another village, and we spent another 3 years while rebuilding our house before we returned home. And I started working in elementary school, and a school principal came to me and he said that I have to go to a peace-building seminar that is organized by an American organization. There will be an American professor. And I attended already before one seminar when we were told that we have to forget about what happened, we should move on, and I wish I could forget, but it was just impossible. And I really needed to hear, what are ways, if they exist, that I can deal with this and that I can move on. And I told him, I don't know if I'm gonna, because it's gonna be for me for the first time to sit in the same room. If I'm not sure if I'm gonna attack somebody or if I'm gonna be able to control myself. And he literally said, I have to sacrifice somebody. You are the only one who doesn't have children, who doesn't have family, and you will go. I mean, this was just after the war, and it was really super dangerous for everybody. Everybody was afraid of first reactions and how we will react. And when I went there, this professor started with welcoming, and she said, you have a chance to sit and talk about what happened, or you can leave this for next generation. And for me, it just wasn't fair that we would leave this burden that we were carrying to the future generations to deal with it. I mean, we witnessed, we knew exactly what happened, and I thought that if somebody needs to resolve or talk about this, then it's us who participated in all of this. It was not easy to sit in the circle. I had one of the teachers from Creator, a third teacher, who started to say how she can't believe she's sitting with us, blah, blah, blah. She went on maybe for 10 minutes. I just couldn't listen to her. And I waited till she was done, and then I told her everything I wanted to tell for the past 7 years. And I yelled, as you can imagine. I was super angry. And then Professor gave us a break. I really needed a cigarette, so I went to the balcony. She followed me and she said, oh my God, you're gonna be an amazing peace builder. Believe it or not, I didn't speak English very well at that time. I used F word. I'm like, just leave me alone. Let me smoke in peace. And I cannot, how can I be a peace builder with this amount of anger, with this amount of, I was not willing to sit in the same room. And then I had one of the Serb teachers who followed me, and she approached me and she said, I'm so sorry for everything that we did to you. And this was for me. It's like, I could see what she was doing to me. Like, please don't do this. It is so much easier to just have you all in one box than that I have to now think who disagreed with Milosevic, who agreed with that policy. And she went on and on. And she told me with one sentence that she wanted to quit her job when all the Bosniak and Croat colleagues were fired, and then the school principal threatened her with the life of her son, who was my age. And she said, now when I look back, I really wish that I just quit. Even if they killed him, I think I would continue with my life without feeling this guilty. It's like this guilt is killing me. And with this program, I stayed for 5 years, and I can say that I learned a lot about peace building work, but I also learned a lot about those who didn't agree with the policy of ethnic cleansing and genocide. And I, after that, had a chance to come to SIT to first attend the contact program, which was an amazing summer program where there were people from 60 different countries, a lot of survivors of different atrocities, different wars. And it was really helpful to realize that Bosnia wasn't alone in this, or that I wasn't alone in this way of thinking that we were nothing special. We were just part of the humanity, and not only our humans were stupid, but there were many stupid humans around the world. And I graduated in master program in international relations with a special focus on peace building, and this was also very helpful. I felt at that time that I learned a lot of theories, a lot of case studies, and then I was very sure that I want to go back home and work for peace in Bosnia. Once I got there, I also needed, allies, and peace work, peace building work, reconciliation work at that time was not popular at all, and I was lucky to meet a younger guy whose name is Vahidin Omanovic, and we spent 2 years. First time when we met, he asked me what you were doing, and I told him I'm a peace builder. I want to work for reconciliation, and he just got so angry, and I saw him that he's in the place where I was just a few years ago. So I, of course, allowed him to be angry, and he told me what he thought, and we spent about 2 years talking and thinking, and I even had already friends from Serb side who were peace builders, so we had several coffees with them, and finally Vahidin was in the place where he was able also to commit himself to peace building. And maybe in this process, the most difficult or the most painful part for me was forgiveness. And I knew, I was encouraged by my religion and by also other religions, and hearing these inspiring people who were talking about forgiveness, but it was always a question: by forgiving, am I betraying all the victims? Am I betraying my experience? Am I betraying my village? Am I betraying my family? And luckily, I had a course on forgiveness where I learned that actually we should forgive because we deserve it, not because they deserve it. And for me, this then became clear because I knew that every night when I went to bed and I was thinking about, them, they never felt that. They didn't suffer because of that. It was me who was suffering because of this. Once I realized this, it became then super easy to say, I forgive, and I moved on, and I felt the huge burden fell off my shoulders, and I was really able to continue with my life with a totally different quality of living. So both of us, we felt if this process was available for us, if it was possible for us, then it's possible for everybody else, and we really wanted to share it with people and help people to go through the process of reconciliation and forgiveness. And then we established an NGO because we needed a legal frame how to do it. And I have to tell you that it was not easy, because as soon as we said peace building and reconciliation, it was understood that this was working with them, and then we will be bringing them to Sanski Most, we will be going to their places, and as you can imagine, because I studied in the States, people assumed that we were CIA agents, Wahhabis, Jehovah's Witnesses, evangelical church, God knows what. And we just realized that we have to really first work on trust building in our own community if we want to do anything about it. And we also wanted, since all the theories that I studied, I just realized they were not working in Bosnia. And what we did, we organized coffee is super important in our culture. And I want to share that one of my cultural shocks when I came to study here was that you guys had coffee to go. For me, as a proper Bosnian, it's like, you don't go with coffee. You make coffee, you sit, you talk, sometimes half an hour, like minimum. But you can go for hours, if not for days, but you don't go with your coffee anywhere. So in our culture, coffee, as I said, super important, and the way we did it, we announced to the community that we will have coffee for peace. We speak, as you know, in Bosnia, we have 3 official languages: Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian. There is also Montenegrin that's spoken, an official language in Montenegro. And we called, like, most of the words are similar, if not the same, but coffee is different, believe it or not. So in Serbian it's kafa, in Croatian it's kava, in Bosnian it's kahla. And we call it coffee for peace. Kahla, kafa, kava za mir. So we invited people to come, and people would come, mainly young people, but also people who were our age and older. So we wanted to hear from them, what is that you need so that you can reconcile? What is that you need that you can heal? We were very much interested in individual healing, but also in the healing of our communities. And what we heard from people, from young people, is you have to work with young people, you have to work with religious leaders, and you have to help us with trauma healing, if possible. So both of us, we started really to study and to learn, and we learned a few methods in trauma healing. We also studied different religious books so that we were ready to address local religious leaders. I want to share that we thought, oh, we know them, it's going to be a piece of cake to get them to come here. Already in our heads, we want to have an event where religious leaders will talk about peace building, reconciliation, for their own tradition. We went, but we actually found out that they were explicitly against to come meet and work together. And then it took us, believe it or not, 5 years. We would study, then go back with them, using their terminology, using their traditions to show them what Jesus would do, or how Jesus dealt with things, how Muhammad dealt with things, and then after 5 years, they said, okay, let's have coffee, but no media, nothing. We don't be seen in public, which we really did. And once they came together, it took them really one coffee to realize that these are human beings, these are our colleagues, we do the same work, but in different communities. And we said, we have this idea, maybe it would be interesting for you, but we were really hoping they would say yes. And after 1 hour, they said, well, we can do that, no problem. We were like, oh my God, 5 years. We really tried hard, and we were desperate. And then after one coffee, so coffee, as you can see, can be really useful in peace building. And then we had this event, and until then, all the events that we had, it was 2 people, 5 people, 10 was maximum, including like my entire family, Vahidin's family. But with this event, the hall, it was in the city hall, the hall was full. There were people who were standing, and what they did in one night for reconciliation in our community, we couldn't do for 10 years. Like, I can say that. Because people in our communities, religious leaders, are symbols, and when they saw symbols together, that was like, we can work together, we can be together. There is nothing wrong, with that. And then with youth, we just developed different programs, and for us was very important because that was 2004. The youth were still those who survived war, either as victims or soldiers. And it was, for us, of course, very scary to bring them together, but at the same time, we knew that everybody deserves a chance to sit with somebody and try to get some kind of healing. I mean, if I would share stories what we experienced in these peace camps, it was really, I always say that there was a touch from somewhere else that was really directly, like Vahidin and I are amazing facilitators. But what was happening in the group was really beyond what we could do. And for example, once we had a girl who was 11 when she was raped, and she was sharing her story, and next to her was a girl from a different ethnic group that was enemy to her, and she was sharing how her father was taken away by his best friend, and she was 19, she never had best friend in her life, and she doesn't believe in friendship. And when the first girl was sharing, this other girl was comforting her, and when she was sharing, this other girl that was comforting her, and when she finished, they hugged and they cried, and all of us, we just sat there and cried for, I don't know, maybe a whole hour, because they finished the circle of sharing, and there were so many stories that were so horrible. Like, I don't know how people continue their lives after experiencing something so horrible. But what I learned in these kind of sessions was that the power of group and power of community is really all we need if we allow ourselves to cross over and to heal ourselves and continue and move on in our lives. So there are many different programs, but you can find us on a website and also on a Facebook page where we report about our activities. So I don't want to spend too much time to talk about programming, but for example, one thing, and this is just so when you decide to go back to your communities or if you want to start doing peace building work here, for 5 years when we were working in Sanski Most and we were on the year 3, the local radio, television, I think because they didn't really have news, they started to follow what we were doing, and we were doing a lot at this time, so they were reporting a lot. So, and then we would talk to people and they asked, where do you work? And I would tell them Center for Peace Building, and they were shocked. Oh, never heard. And you know, after 1 year, we were just tired. Like, we have to do something really for the wider community so people can understand, can learn more about our work, peace building. So we established a whole week that we call International Peace Week, and it always ends on 21st of September, which is International Peace Day. And we even wanted the local municipality council to recognize International Peace Day as a day of importance for the local community. But unfortunately, on that day was the last massacre that took place in '95 in South Most, and we have commemoration. So for the municipality council members, commemoration of those who were killed in ethnic cleansing and International Peace Day cannot go well together. So we didn't give up. We are still trying to explain how exactly because of this, the International Peace Day should be also a date of special importance for the local community. But we use this week to bring practitioners and academia people and professors from Bosnia, from Croatia, from Serbia, United States, Western Europe countries to give expertise and to talk about peace building or memory or reconciliation. And every year we have more and more participants, and every year we have more and more people who are interested to hear. And now in Sanski Most, maybe there is 2% of population who doesn't know what Center for Peace Building is, or who doesn't know what peace building is. So I would say our goal was achieved, but it's, for me, it's always good to have it because it's really unique opportunity, especially for high school kids and elementary school kids to get their first information about what peace building is. And we also realized in the whole work that we really need to work also, we have to do something about climate change, and we didn't know much, so we, at the moment, we are still studying what environmental peace building is, but we were lucky to get funds and buy a farm that we called Peace Farm / Garden of Opportunities for the youth people in our community. And that's a whole concept of a safe space, because when we talk about dialogue, when we talk about peace building, we always talk about safe space, and we are trying to really build a physical space as soon as people come, that they know that they're safe there and they can then take whatever they need for their either personal healing or their professional or personal growth. So for us, it's also very important part of peace building is networking, and it's we've seen in our work many times where, for example, local government tried to do something to us, that we had people who would come from either Western Europe or United States, and then they felt that we were, you know, extra protected, which we were, but they didn't really dare to do anything, you know, against what we were doing. Even they strongly sometimes disagreed, but after we received some international awards, the local government realized that we were invited, we had reception by the mayor, and he said, but we just can't pretend you guys are not doing anything here. And they gave us the highest award of the local community, which was really, for us, super important. They still don't give us any budget, so that also needs to be changed. We are happy at least now that they see us as a friend of our community. That's what the mayor said in the last speech that he gave in one of our events. One of the biggest obstacles for the peace building and reconciliation work in Bosnia is our government. Also, the fact that we are surrounded by Serbia and Croatia is not always a blessing, unfortunately. And we have, I don't know if you're familiar with how post-Dayton Bosnia governing looks like, but it really sounds like a joke. But we have, for example, 3 presidents, we have 14 governments, we have 136 ministers, we have 10 cantons. Each canton has its own government, prime minister, and above all, we have 148 political parties. And yes, aren't we rich? So very often after elections, they spend 3 years to make coalition, and then we have government for 6 months, then it fails, and then we have new elections. And that goes on and on. But this is, this is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that half of the country, I'm talking about political elites, are still denying genocide, are still denying ethnic cleansing. They, for example, want to go to Srebrenica Memorial Day on July 11th, and they, prior to that, they say it was not really genocide. It was a terrible event, it was a massacre, but it wasn't genocide. And somehow the politicians in the other half, they were begging the international community to do something about this. So finally we had a high representative. Are you familiar with OHR? We have government, but OHR is the representative of international community, and he has the highest powers over Bosnian government. So we had one guy who was from Austria, and he was, I think, 10 years, he became totally unimportant, and he should be the most important political figure in the country. And he was just expressing, all these years, expressing his deepest concerns. So, I don't know if you know that we Bosnians, we have great sense of humor, and we even invented the measures for worrying. It's now 1 Insk, that was his name. He's the measure of I'm concerned 5 Inskos, I'm concerned 7 Inskos. But on the last day of his job in Bosnia, he imposed the law that whoever denies genocide will be punished by law. And then he left position. And then we got another one who is a little bit, I would say, even more lost than the previous one. And we still have same politicians who are denying genocide, and nobody is doing anything like that. So for me personally, I think it would be for me easier not to have the law than to have it and nobody can do anything about it. So this is really showing the weakness of the international community and also of the state of Bosnia, that there is nothing they can do about this. And last year, we're thinking about new war. It's kind of hanging over our heads for last, I would say, 13 years. Almost every day, that's what we hear on the news. There is no normal news that you listen and then it says, I don't know, this forest they found out in this forest, a tree that's 1,000 years old. We didn't have that news since 92. And it's always, Dodik said that Bosnia is an impossible country, Republika Srpska must separate, we have to join Serbia. Then from other sides, their narratives, and it's totally crazy, but it's also terrifying us on a daily basis. And this is the reason why a lot of people are leaving. During the war, we lost 1 million. citizens Bosnia had before the war 4.5 million, then after the war 3.5 million. Now they say that we have 2.5 million people. So we are very small country, and people are just living because they cannot endure to live in a society where their lives are threatened almost on a daily basis, and corruption is all over the place, and also the lack of possibilities for jobs. And you can be, I don't know how educated and how smart, if you then don't have connections, there are very small possibilities that you will get a job that you deserve. So, and Western Europe really opened their doors for Bosnians, so everybody is leaving, and everybody is leaving, Bosnians, Serbs, and Croats. And in terms of reconciliation, the thing is that those who leave and who meet in Germany, they become their best friends forever. So, you know, but the fact that we are losing people, and for example, 10 years ago, we had a volunteer club where we had 150 volunteers of all ages, and now we have 30 volunteers for mainly high school kids, because we don't have people who graduated from universities. Most of them are going either to big cities or Germany. So these are some of the difficulties and challenges, and for me personally, you know, I do peace building work because I believe in this deeply, and for me this is not work, or it's not a job, it's really a calling. And then after 18 years of working, like when you look, so what did we achieve? How much did we contribute to peace? I want to believe that without us, war maybe would have started in 2000, and I hope I'm wrong. But it's not easy to talk about the same things in 2023 as we did in 2005, and it's then having political elites, you know, not changing their rhetorics, and especially with the Russian aggression on Ukraine, we were petrified, and a lot of people left Bosnia in those 2 weeks, not knowing what was the Putin's plan. Is he gonna stay in Ukraine, or is he gonna also, I don't know, mobilize Bosnian Serb politicians to do something? It's not clear. But we know that after the Hague pressed charges against Putin, or announced that he is now a wanted war criminal, the situation in Bosnia gotten really bad. Even some people were attacked, some returnees were attacked in Republika Srpska, and also some journalists. And at the moment, Republika Srpska is trying to make 2 new laws. One is that verdict, if you say anything against government, you can end up in jail. And the second, we had this in communist Yugoslavia. And the second is that that would prohibit gay people to go near any educational institutions, so primary, elementary, high school, or university. So imagine, it's not getting any better in terms of human rights, but I believe deeply that Dodik is really just trying to see how far he can go. So I'll pause here, and I'll leave space for you to ask questions, and I'll try to answer if I can. And also, if I don't know, I will feel free to say I really don't know. So, if you have any questions. Yes. You can.
So in the very beginning, you mentioned about this notion that this is a society and there's a considerable amount of denial that this can happen. And I worked in Ukraine in 2016 and 2018. The story I heard about what happened in Eastern Ukraine was strikingly similar. That there was a society where there was a lot of intermarriage, but there was a lot of 70% of the Eastern Ukrainians had relatives, direct or indirect, that were of Russian, Tatar, Ukrainian. And then overnight, these fighters showed up to the major cities and took over the main buildings. And a common thread was a lot of connectors of those units had previous experience of fighting in Bosnia. So it's almost the same way that you're a peacemaker. These folks are war makers. There's kind of a similar script that played out in this tribe. And I was wondering if if this is kind of a repeating, almost like there's a playbook that this follows.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just wanted any comments on that, like how like it seems like the same way you learn something from that experience, so did they were able to repeat it.
Mhm.
And it seems that
I mean, I can just say yes. I mean, we had fighters from many places, fighting for different sides. But for example, in the Srebrenica genocide, it's proven that Greek and Ukrainian and Russian volunteers participated. So, yeah, I mean, it would be easiest to say, they are lunatics, they're psychopaths, they have to fight, but I know from one book that I read that, people who kill are ordinary and normal people like us. Maybe after that experience, they start to have problems, but yeah, I don't know what to say. It's we see that fighters are traveling from one war zone to another, and I'm not sure what's their motivation. Is it money? Is it something else? But it's known. I worked in Zaporozhye 6 years ago, and they told me that there was a fighter or fighters from Serbia who was during the day he was a fighter, and at the evening he had a very popular cooking show on I don't remember on which television, and they asked me if I knew him. I never heard of him. But in Bosnia we have a law that prohibits people to go and fight in any other country, and it's very strict. And we have some people who were sentenced for between 7 and I think 15 years in prison because they went to foreign war zones to fight. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, maybe.
Thank you. So it was quite incredible to hear about your experience and process of forgiveness. I am wondering what level of what is the notions of forgiveness among the community. I mean, you're a peace builder, you're a peaceful person. It's easy. It wasn't even easy for you to forget. What about regular people? Based on earlier conversations and presentations in the past few days, the population seems like sizably small, and you might have, I guess, a more close understanding to it. What level of accountability do we need to have a meaningful forgiveness? I mean, forgiveness without accountability is effective or sustainable or not.
I see forgiveness on two levels. One is individual and another is collective. And I think for collective forgiveness is very important acknowledgement from the other side. And even though I forgave, even though I'm a peace builder, I want every war criminal to be in prison, to be punished. I want every country to be punished if they dare to think that they could attack some other country. So me being peace builder or being able to forgive has nothing to do with justice. And I also didn't need acknowledgement. Like if I was listening to the leadership of Republika Srpska or Serbia, I would never be able to forgive. But I understood that this is my own process and I'm accountable for it. and it's my responsibility to take care of myself. And I mean, you don't have to live through a war to have something to forgive. Every one of us in this room has something to forgive. And if you think, I mean, you know what's the burden that you are carrying. And if you think that you should forgive because they deserve, you will never be able to forgive. So for me, it's really the forgiveness. We deserve that forgiveness. We deserve to unburden ourselves. There is so much injustice done to us, you know, throughout all our life. Sometimes from our closest family members, but sometimes also from neighbors, from, you know, other nations, you know, God knows what. But it's your responsibility to take care of yourself and to know, you know, what is harming you and what is not. Like when I was when I returned from refugee camp, and people were asking me, oh, how old are you now? I immediately went, oh, 16, and I'm like, oh, I'm not. You know, or now when people ask me, how old are you? If I don't think about it, I go 44, and I'm 48. So these 4 years, I don't feel that I lived at all. But then I came to the point where I realized, okay, they took 4 years away from me, and now I'm giving them 6 more. It's like, no. So that's the reason, like, maybe people wouldn't even call this forgiveness. But I just, and this was decided, this was my decision, I just didn't want to carry on that burden that was on me, and the way I got rid of it was to say out loud, I forgive. And I forgave for everything that was done to me. You know. And still I want all of those who are responsible, I want to see them in jail. You know, I used to want them to suffer. You know, I don't want them to suffer anymore. Like, I don't want life to punish them, but I want them in jail. And I want them in jail because another lesson that I learned in our war and in post-war situation is we have war criminals who are working as police officers now, who are sitting in government. First 3 presidents of from Republika Srpska in Bosnian government ended up in jail because of war crimes. You know, we have war criminals who are working in stores and people imagine how it is for somebody who was raped during the war, going into a bakery and seeing the person who raped him or her, not being able really to say anything. You know, so for me, and this is totally different, you know, from how I deal with what happened to me. And I would say that's also one of the things, but that's why people also deny. Because if we start to acknowledge, we know that according to research, at least 30,000 killers are walking and living among us in Bosnia. You know, that's not small number. And when I talk about these to participants from Bosnia, you know, all of them, they look at me and they start thinking, wait, but my father, maybe, you know, they cannot even say it out loud. And they are hoping, and I had participants who came to me and said, how do I continue now? Without asking my father. And I said, go home and ask. I mean, that's your father, he loves you most, you're the most precious to him. And tell him why you are interesting to him. Because you don't deserve, this is why I tell them, you don't deserve to carry this burden, this is not your burden. You know, why do you accept? Why do you say yes to carry a burden that is not yours? And we had participants who went home and called and asked their parents, where were you? Did you participate? Did you not participate? You know, we had, I will always remember, she is an amazing peace builder now. When she called, before she left camp on the last day, she said, I'm really scared to death because the way people were describing experiences from different parts of Bosnia, like, there is huge chance that my father participated. And I'm like, but you can't know. I mean, ask him. And she called, like, it took her 2 weeks. But then finally she said, I really need to know the truth. And she said, he said that he didn't kill anyone. Should I trust him? I'm like, yes. If that's what he told you, I mean, why, what would be her life to continue now to think that maybe he is lying? Trust him. And if this is what he is telling you, believe that he didn't. Love your father, continue your life. Because it's not your burden anyway. And when we talk to them about why they accept to carry that burden, they look at us and they look at us like they don't have option. They have to. And they don't. And that's what we are also trying to teach. You can just say, no, this was not done in my name. I really want to know what happened. I don't want to carry, and I want to work in the reconciliation between you and us. Did I answer at least a little bit? But collective is totally different. For collective, you really need, I mean, again, the genocide denial, especially from Serbian government, is very much damaging relationships that we are trying to rebuild in Bosnia. So acknowledgement on the state level is extra important. Yes, thank you. Yes.
It's not so much a question, or maybe there will be a question once I'm done. But so my family is Puerto Rican. My family is Puerto Rican, and the Taino indigenous population has been basically completely wiped out during the Colombian exchange. And hearing you talk about this, like, really resonated with me, because I feel like because of that I lose out on a lot of culture that I feel very connected to, I can't, I don't know who my ancestors are. I am like, my mom has about like 23% indigenous, most likely Taino, in her blood, and then the other majority is Spanish, so you can kind of assume, what happened. And I think about how I feel when I think about that, because I grew up here in the States. My parents grew up mostly, in Puerto Rico, and then came here. And my mom is very in touch with culture, and she misses Puerto Rico so much, and she's always talking about it. And my parents have worked really hard to try to teach, me and my brother, but because we didn't live there, it feels like there's a huge disconnect, and I feel almost like robbed of a culture that I could have been living, and like now you look at Puerto Rico now, and like a lot of it is like the people are not given the resources they need. People are not given the opportunity to build themselves up. They can't vote for their representatives, and like I feel like it. I don't know. I just feel like we were robbed in a way, and it's really like I haven't even begun to think about like what it would be like to feel, I guess, forgiveness for that, because I still feel very distant from that culture, being, American. And I think about, like the systems that are in place in our country now, and how there is just so much oppression, and it's constant, and it's, like all these systems are set in place to keep the rich rich and to keep the poor poor, and like I'm filled with such like rage, it's nothing but rage, and it's hard to think about what change I would like to see, because sometimes it feels almost hopeless. And I'm just like, well, why don't I just leave the United States? I'm just gonna get the hell out of here, like why even bother? And it's really also hard as a young student to try to educate myself on these things, because it feels very difficult. It feels very hard to grasp with it, and it feels like I have so much stuff going on in my personal life. Like, how am I supposed to add now this other pressure of being like, okay, what can I do as a young person to try to like make the world a better place, while also like struggling with a lot of ancestral trauma and like generational trauma and like trauma throughout my personal life. Like it feels very difficult to like I want so badly to be the change that I want to see, but at the same time, it's like that feels like so much pressure, and like hearing you talk about this, like I like to consider myself a peacemaker in like my own life, and I would like to feel peace within myself, and it feels like a very long, long road ahead of me, but I would like to see more of this all over the world. You know, this is something that I feel like is so crucial, not only to like society in the world, but to us as humans, as people who need to connect. You know, like I feel like now people are so self-centered, especially in America. Like so, not self-centered, but like we are so focused on what we like personally need to do in our lives, and we don't think about how that affects other people. We don't think about other people. We don't talk to each other. We don't, you know, and I don't know. A lot of people like talk about Gen Z, and it's like, oh, you know, they're always on social media and they're always doing this, blah blah. The internet's bad, but like in my mind, we've created a place where, yeah, there is a lot of hatred. You know, there is so much hatred on the internet because you can hide behind the screen, but at the same time, like, I see so much good. I see so much good, and there's so much more potential for that to be spread, especially because of the internet. But yeah, I don't know. I really resonated with a lot of what you said, and I would like to see more of it, and I would like to be a part of it. But you know, right now, I don't know if it's gotta work through my own stuff first. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You are part of it, and that's where we start. Remember, in my story, I was working with myself and on myself for many years. I still am, and probably I will continue until as long as I breathe, unfortunately. And that was also, like for me, it was, oh my God, after 22 years, and the anger starts to really grow. And it's very scary, because I know how it is to be angry to the point where you cannot really control yourself. And then I immediately focus on, you know, this is moments where I come up with the best peace-building ideas. You know, when I start feeling this anger coming up, so I just use it in that way. And I never said that peace-building is easy. You know, it's very difficult, but also very healing. Thank you. And keep asking yourself questions. That's the best thing. Yes, we have wounds, ancestral wounds, historical wounds all over the place. Bosnia is nothing unique, you know, or special in that sense.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, I feel like the word self-care is very trite in this kind of situation, but if you could talk about like your practice for maintaining your own emotional, spiritual equilibrium in this kind of work, because that's one of the things that scares me the most about this work is just the idea that I wouldn't be able to function in my own life, and so I'm just curious, what are the things that you do to sort of protect yourself and keep yourself, you know, functional enough that you can go back and do more?
I try to find ways to keep myself healthy, and even with many different, you know, methods, and I learned craniosacral therapy as a method to deal with trauma, and in craniosacral therapy, resources are the most important. So I was really paying attention, what are my resources, am I using them? And with all of this, I found myself at some point back in 2012 that I was totally lost. And I had friends and family who actually told me, you don't look healthy, you don't look like you're okay, please go and see. I did all the checks, I was fine, and I didn't feel sick, you know, but I was working also 16 hours almost every day. I didn't have any vacation or weekend for maybe 5-6 years. And my day was to work in the office, project proposals, and then meeting having 2-3 sessions with people who needed help, concentration camp survivors, people who were raped. And then at 8:30 at night, my wife would ask me to go and buy, I don't know, sour cream to bring home. I would go to store to buy sour cream, and then the woman who was at the cashier, she's like, oh my God, you're the guy from that organization that works with traumatized people. I'm like, yes. let me tell you.
Yeah.
And she would go for 1 hour, and how do you stop? Like, I didn't know how to stop and say, come and meet me tomorrow in my office, or let's see when you have time, I have time. But I just felt that I needed to be there to listen this, and also because I was practicing my faith, I thought, I was safe because I pray so much, and I just, So one thing I didn't use as resource was the supervision. Like, no matter what you do, you really need to have somebody who understands what you're going through. And, I felt I was just strong enough. Genocide couldn't do anything to me. Genocide couldn't do anything to me. How could, little story hearing could harm me? And I found myself really, it was the first time when I came to Omanvic, when I participated in the program, I had a phone call from Switzerland, and they said, you have to come because we heard that you're not doing well. You have to come to spend some time with us, and we can. They had different methods of dealing with, humans. So I went on Sunday, and I arrived maybe around 5 o'clock, and I maybe had coffee, and I told them I wasn't hungry, I was just going to sleep, and I woke up at maybe, 7:30 at night. And I'm like, okay, 2 hours of sleep, I felt really rested, and I went back to them, and they were sitting around a table, deeply concerned, and I'm like, is everything okay? But something happened. They were like, are you aware how long you slept? I'm like, well, 2.5 hours. They're like, it's Wednesday. And then I realized I didn't send any message to my wife. Like, by Wednesday she's going to be terrified. I went to Auschwitz, and then she knew that I was going from Auschwitz to Switzerland. So I'm like, oh my, I have to let her know. It's like, don't worry, we called them, we told them that you are fine, but you were sleeping. And I'm like, but I really feel good. So I used 7 days just to be by a lake, very often by myself, and I really, there is another resource that I use that is not healthy, but I use it, and when I use it, I really feel empowered and strong, and it's not good for my lungs. But from that moment, I now have a supervisor, and not only one, I have several supervisors, and I also realize that something that helps me work over these horrible stories is to hear stories of survival and stories of rescue, which is really helpful, because I also realized that I was losing hope for anything, and especially living in a country like this, working with the staff that I work, and then, so for me it's very important to have somebody who is going to listen to you, and I don't play a hero anymore. And also when people come and they say, if I see that I don't have capacity, I tell them, I'm sorry, I can't today, but we can see when it's time. And still, if I go by bus, let's say to Sarajevo, whoever sits with me, like after 3 minutes, they don't even know me. They don't know where I work. Once I traveled with train from Prijepolje, which is Republika Srpska, to Zagreb, and there were 2 ladies in the car, and I didn't want to talk because immediately they would realize that I wasn't from Prijepolje. They were obviously from Prijepolje, and they started telling me like their life experience, how one lost her brother, one lost, and I was just sitting there, I'm like, this is unbelievable. And then I told them that I was Bosnian from Savski Most, and I told them that I also do peace work and reconciliation work, and then one of them, she said, something in you just invited me, like, to tell you because my heart is broken, and I'm I mean, of course, I feel blessed because of it, but at the same time, it can be very, very damaging, So I try my best to take care of myself. Thank you. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you're doing more like peacebuilding peacebuilding like projects with the community, like high schoolers and stuff. Do you do like various kind of I guess like activities or projects, or do you focus on like little ways trying to help heal the traumas that are happening, and also trying to educate, especially younger children, the history, but also trying to help them build the scale so they can move forward?
I would say both, or all three, and even more. So we work directly with students and we teach them skills, nonviolent communication skills, active listening, conflict transformation skills, but we work with teachers also, and we had several programs where we taught teachers, especially history and language teachers, how to approach genocide prevention and mass atrocity prevention. And also, we had one program where we worked with teachers, thanks to AIPG, to kind of help them teach Holocaust and genocide, because in our textbooks there is no word about Bosnian genocide. So they're also not that they're not allowed, but they're not given any material to teach. So we try to really find a way how to help them to teach it without harming children. So, which is very crucial for us. And at the moment we are developing with religious leaders, we are developing program in violence prevention for the religious teachers to teach prevention to their students in school, in cooperation with religious teachers from other religious traditions. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes. Na slovensko,
No. So this is a question kind of inspired or in honor of Dubravka Ugrasic, who recently passed away, and I think was was certainly one of the writers who was always fervently actually identified as Yugoslav until her death, right? And fervently anti-nationalistic. And so I'm curious about, if your practice includes collaboration with figures from the culture, broader sort of cultural or arts sectors, and how that sort of is incorporated into the work you do.
You mean in Bosnia or in region?
Broad, whichever.
Yeah. We welcome anyone who wants to come and help us out. And we know that, we are very much aware that living in Bosnia and using what we know and what we experienced, it has also its limits.
Mm-hmm.
So we had many people who come from abroad and then give their ideas or help us develop different ways of, touching the nationalism, radicalism, and we have a theater for kids at the moment, and there was a UN program that we found online, and we sent one of our volunteers to go and learn more about it, and now we have at least one play in a year where we actually talk about problems in community, and these are kids from 6 to 10 years old, and also it's amazing like how the audience react. We had once a play that was talking about stigma against people who survived sexual violence during the war, and we also played it in different parts of Bosnia, including Republika Srpska, and it was, for me, it was the first time that we were kind of publicly talking in our town about it, and the play was that to actually show to the victims that 97% of the Bosnian population is not judging victims, but it's really on the side of victims. Only 3%, but in the research it was shown that the victims actually only heard those 3%. So when the way when we finished the play, we asked then audience to either ask questions or comment, And we had in two towns, in Tuzla and in Savski Most, we had a survivor who stood up and she said that she never shared her story of being raped during the war. This is the first time that she is saying it in front of anyone. She was literally saying it in front of the whole town. You know, so it was really powerful that she felt safe and that she felt encouraged to let us know what happened to her, and she was silent for like 20, almost 30 years. You know, so we use also different methods that we don't know them, but we have friends who come and who know, like painting or different artistic documentaries, movie creating. I mean, different methods that we love if people want to come. So I encourage you, if you want to come and contribute, please let us know. And also for the garden, if you have an uncle or aunt that is rich and would like to donate. We are planning now to build the seminar house, and we're gonna need a lot of funds for that. So just to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Any other question? We still have about 5 minutes, right? Yes, Leah?
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's been so wonderful listening to you speak. I was wondering how you feel or perceive differences in working through trauma and working through these experiences with maybe people who were there and experienced and lived through the violence, as opposed to children who maybe inherited and young people who inherited this, and how they maybe react differently to the different types of mechanisms and techniques that you use, but also how you perceive their reaction.
It's a good question. I would say the main difference between those who survived and the new generation is that those who survived also have memory of beautiful coexistence that we had before the war. Kids don't have it. And they were born in a society that's deeply divided. And not only that, but educational system, politics, media, social media especially, and everything else is there to help them not ever desire to meet somebody who is the other. And that's why we see our work even more important, because most of the time our programs are the first time that they meet each other. And when they come, what do you expect? I never expected them to come and immediately hold hands and say goodbye. Right? But and we ask them, we have several exercises that we do with them on identity, on prejudice, on cycles of revenge and reconciliation, and when we ask them, okay, so tell us who you are, tell us your identities, because it's Center for Peacebuilding, it's Peace Camp, so they think that the way to make peace is to hide their ethnic or religious identity. And we tell them, no. We want you to be free to say who you are and to be really okay with it. Like, you don't have to be proud of it. I don't see also, like, why would I be proud to be Bosniak or Bosnian? I didn't do anything to deserve it. Okay, it was given to me. So I'm fine with it, I'm in peace with it, and let me see how I can do as much good as possible also in this identity or from this identity. But that's the main difference. And when they come, they are afraid of each other, they really hate each other, they don't respect each other, so this is where we are trying to, and that's why I think our programs are powerful, because we really create space for them to say also everything that they were taught. And there are things, what they say, it just makes me, freeze. And I know that I can't expect them. They come, some of them come with really open-minded, and I know it's their parents. That's the only reason why, because also their friends, like when they, on the last day of our programs, once they experience transformation and they need to go back home, they cry like hell. It's like, I'm afraid to go back. How can I share this experience with anyone? Like, I don't have a friend who will understand what I'm talking about without judging me. It's like, I'm gonna be excluded, and what do you say? Or do you So it's a normal thing. It's expected from them to have this, what we say, little fascistic ideas, but that's why we are there then to help them really think. And we always, whatever we tell them, don't believe us. Check. Do research. Google is there, like you can find every information you want. You can double check, you can check 5 times before you accept, try to think critically, because in our educational system, critical thinking is the least desired. You are punished if who are you to think? I had my son who came and said, teacher got mad because I said, but I think. And she said, it's not your job to think. You have to memorize books. Come with the knowledge that but you shouldn't think. And this is unfortunately, the way it is. I hope I answered.
Yes, thank you.
So one last question. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, brother. It's much appreciated. I wanted to go back on the topic of forgiveness. What does your work look like today with serves if there's, if you do have work going on with them, what role do they currently play in the society and community as far as reconciliation and peace building?
There are many Serbs peace builders in Bosnia who work for peace and reconciliation. Again, I was talking about, I don't know if you were here when I was talking about this law that is going to be passed, and then it's going to really be difficult for colleagues in Republika Srpska to continue with their work. So we don't know how this will look like, but there are many. We have most of participants who came to our programs. They continue to be peace builders in this or that way, and many of them are from Republika Srpska, and also they belong to ethnic Serb community. So, there are colleagues, brothers and sisters, peace builders who are working for reconciliation. Okay, so maybe for the end, I just want to say I would feel really bad not to say this, and I feel it's like one of the main messages that I really want to give, especially because you are American students here. Please don't take peace for granted. Wherever you live, peace that you have is sometimes somebody was fighting for it heavily, and you have to continue to work for peace. We in Yugoslavia, in Bosnia, we thought we had peace, everything was fine, and didn't really work for it. I wish we did, and I just want to say that peace that we have can be changed overnight, as you would hear from my story. So please work for it, and as soon as you feel that something is changing, like stand up and just do whatever you want to protect peace that you live in. So thank you so much for
Thank you so much, Vahidin. Thank you all for coming. Just to let you know, next week's spring break, obviously, but the week after that, April 14th and 15th, we have our annual Frontiers in Prevention meeting, which is a 2-day meeting with experts and practitioners in prevention coming from all over the world. During the days, those events will take place at the University Downtown Center, and they are open for all of you, and we hope you'll come. The evening of April 14th, Friday, April 14th, at 5 o'clock, we have Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Ressa, a Filipino-American journalist who's coming and speaking on campus. That's in Lecture Hall 1 at 5 o'clock on Friday, April 14th, and we really hope you'll join us for that. But please join me again in thanking Vahidin for speaking to us.